So I want to take just a few minutes to go over my lesson plan that will use a social annotation tool called Hypothesis. I want my students to use this tool to annotate Langston Hughes's I Too. This will be a lesson that will come early on in the final unit of my ENC 1101 course, where students will be working toward writing a personal narrative. Prior to that personal narrative writing assignment, they'll read a number of poems and essays that deal with individual and collective identity. They have been working all semester on working to learn how to annotate properly, so the idea of annotating won't be new. However, the technology will be new. Prior to doing this lesson, students will watch a video about Langston Hughes, which I created for them. Then they will annotate the poem, and then after that, they will participate in a discussion board. The discussion board will be how we debrief what happened in our annotations. So in the annotation, students will be hopefully making meaning of the poem, and then in the discussion board, the goal will be to push their thinking forward into, okay, now what can we take away from this regarding identity? So the full lesson agenda will be students will watch the video introducing Hughes. They'll complete the annotation of I Too. They will participate in the discussion board assignment following the annotation. The goal of the lesson will be to examine the collective identity presented in the poem. All right. For assessment, there'll be a couple of formative assessments. The actual annotation and the discussion board posts will both work as formative assessments for me to make sure students are on target. They're getting the idea of what these works are saying about identity, because again, I kind of want them to go ahead and start thinking about identity, because they're going to have to write about something that has contributed to their personal identity in the summative assessment, which is a final essay where they will write a personal narrative that will require them to articulate their individual and collective identities. So I need them to really start thinking about how they see themselves, and I want them to do that through the literature that they're going to read. I will be able to see that they are meeting the outcomes based on the formative assessments of the actual annotation and the discussion board, along with how they do by way of rubric scores when I evaluate them. I also want to take just a moment and show you the lesson and how hypothesis works. So at this point, this lesson still needs to be fleshed out. I'm creating this for a lesson that's taking place in a couple of weeks. So here, students will be presented with their learning outcome and instructions. Right now, this is pretty bare. I will have to flesh this out, but it gives them the basic gist that we need to know, which is that they are going to be annotating I Too by Langston Hughes. I provided a link to the Quick Start Guide for Hypothesis so they can get their account set up, which Hypothesis offers for free, and then they can come in and annotate. So one of the things that's nice is that we have the external tool with Hypothesis. You can access that through Canvas. You have to go in and to Hypothesis and request a product key and things like that, but you can load it directly into Canvas, which is really nice. So then the student can just click on that button and it will bring them to the document that I want them to annotate. In this case, I'm wanting them to annotate on a text that's on a website. You can also have them annotate PDFs or any number of other things, pictures that you want them to annotate, that sort of thing. When they come over to the page, it's going to give them kind of a little bit of getting started advice about how to annotate and things of that nature. I'm going to move this over just so I can show you very quickly. So if I want to create an annotation, say I want to annotate this, you'll notice over here I have two little this little picture that's turned into a quotation mark. So I can click and then I can make comments. Oh, this is interesting. It reminds me of Whitman's I Hear America Singing, because, and I put this comment here because these students would have already read that. And then that shows me that there's a comment there. I can go in, I can click that, and then I can see what the actual annotation is. So it's really neat. Again, this can be set up for individual students or in groups, so it can be very social or not as social, kind of depending on what you want from your students. I hope this video gives you a general idea of what I'm hoping for my students to be able to do. I'm still a little bit shaky on exactly how to use Hypothesis and everything in it. I'm glad that I still have another week or so before I'm going to actually use this activity with my students, because I need to kind of flesh out exactly what everything will look like. But so far, I'm very pleased with what I think it can do.